Hi there, welcome back to the Rusty Lathe project, or should it be called making some chips on this episode. Come across and have a look, because I'm starting to make some little thimbles. All it is a piece of round bar with a hole through the middle. It's a very simple affair, but okay as a first trial with this particular lathe. Come across and have a look, see what it's all about. If you recall, in an earlier episode we spoke about the motor terminal block being broken, the cover of it. So I've simply replaced the cover on a temporary basis with a plastic cap off a tin of spray paint. So this is what I'm currently trying to make. It's simply a hollow tube with a thick wall diameter pipe. And basically it's just a piece of round stock steel. I'm not bothering to machine the outside face of it because I don't need to. So all I'm interested in is making this thing square at the edges, or should I say at the ends. As you can see, this one's a sawn off end and this one is a machined end. So I make the machined end first, I saw it off, and then I shall mill this end to length because I don't have an internal set of jaws for the lathe at the moment. So let's get cracked on and have a look and see how I'm actually making this thing. So it's just a case of taking this round stock bar, popping that into the chuck of the lathe with quite a bit of overhang for safety's sake, because we've got these chuck jaws revolving. As we can see, I haven't yet got a 1/2 inch chuck key for this particular chuck, so I'm using a piece of 1/2 inch stock simply held in a spanner, and that's my chuck key. You've got to always remember to take the chuck key out of the lathe chuck. So this now is just a sawn off end that's in the chuck, and what we need to do is face that across with the lathe tool. I'll turn this round so you can see it better. That's the lathe tool. There's the tip of the tool that does the cutting. I'll simply bring that up to the end of there. I know there's a lot of overhang here, but that is for a reason which I'll explain to you just now, because I need to get this vise reasonably far away so that I can drill a hole in the end of this, and without having to dismantle this all the time, that's the way I've chosen to do it. What I've got to ensure is that these jaws don't strike against anything. See, they're very close. You can perhaps hear the tick as that vice jaw hits. So if you're moving this forward, always be aware that you might have a collision with these chuck jaws or something in the chuck. Be very careful of that and allow for that when you're first sorting out your distances. So what I do is bring the most forward part of a rough sawn edge to a point where you can see it, and align the lathe tool somewhere near to it. Lock everything in place, and then we can take a cut and see how we're fixed. So I'll lock the cross slide off. Always rotate the chuck by hand to make sure that there is nothing that's going to crash. Always make sure that everything's quite sturdy before you try to do your cut. Always wear eye protection. And then if we think that everything's correct, and I've even put this bit of rubber across here to save chippings going onto the lathe bed, we can then turn the machine on. Move the cross slide across. And we know that we're going to be clear, so we need to advance the tool a little bit further. Put some cutting oil on. We've locked the slide in place again, so now we'll try cutting across. It's just taking a cut on the furthest part. So now we can move this a bit further forward. And try another cut across the face of the steel. Here we go again. So these are some of the first cuts made by this lathe. So there we are. That's the end of this bar now, faced off square with the axis of the lathe. So now I'll withdraw the cutting tool away from the work as far as I can. I then need to advance this down towards the chuck slightly, such that I can use this 3-jaw tailstock chuck. I'll advance that down out of the way and give this a turn to make sure that we're clear, so we can see that the jaws are clear, nothing's going to strike, and we're not going to move that anymore at the moment, so that can be locked in place. Under here is the lever that would lock the cross slide such that it can't move backwards and forwards and come into collision with these lathe jaws here. Next step is to insert the centre drill. Slide that up to the work, almost touching the work. Then we can lock that in place with the Allen key. So now when I move this handle, that will move this chuck forward, which will push the drill into the workpiece. And what will happen, because I've locked that there, this now will not slide back. It would have slid back otherwise. Just for clarity on the video, I'll remove this like that, so we can get a better look at what's going on at this end. This also, if not required, could be moved out of the way, so we'll do that as well, because that's good practice, and I'm not needing that in there just now. I have been doing several of these, so I've left it in place because of that, but this is the last one now, so we'll remove this as it should be done for safety's sake. But you can see why it is that I haven't been removing it every time. I've just been making sure that it was parked and positioned safely out of the way. So there we are, we can see clearer now what's going on. So we'll just put some cutting fluid onto the drill. Make sure that when it spins, nothing's going to catch anywhere or drag anything off. There's no loose rags anywhere around. So that's the centre hole drilled. So I'll unlock the tailstock such that that can now move back along the lathe bed. Thus, now we can get to change this drill bit. So these are just a pointed drill at the end like any normal kind of drill, and then it goes onto a shank with a bigger drill area there, and you would probably normally come about 2/3 of the way up this shank apparently and leave it there for your next drill size going in. I've just started it slightly on the end there because the next size of drill that's going in isn't very much bigger than the shank size down here. This is a centre drill that gives a nice sturdy carry on to enter in the hole where it drills, because with it being so bulky there's going to be very little flexing. A smaller drill like this would tend to flex. So I've marked up with some insulation tape how deep I need to go in with spare besides for the parts that I'm making. So I'll now drill that hole there as deep as that up to the tape. Move the tailstock forward again. Not lock it in place, lock it in place here. My other lathe I would lock that in place with that lever there, but not on this lathe. So that's the tailstock locked from moving back when I try to force the drill into the work. Again, make sure everything's still clear and we can turn it on. Away we go. It's coming out very easily, the chips, because we're drilling through the little drilled hole at the moment. Now it's going stiffer and these chips are becoming less springy because we're drilling more depth of material, more width of material out of the hole. Keep withdrawing the drill such that it clears the chips and they fall onto the cross slide. The lathe is revolving slower than it would normally be made to revolve for doing this kind of work. But for a first go with this lathe, at doing such a simple project, I'm just finding my way with it. So I'm up to the tape, and I know that hole's deeper now than I need it to be. So turn the lathe off, and now everything is safe again. So we'll slacken that. The tail sock can be moved away. If we finish with that drill now, we can remove the drill, and then we're not actually going to catch ourselves and scratch ourselves on something that's pointing out that needn't be pointing out. So there we have a nice squared up end with a hole deeper than we need, and I'm going to just measure it now and saw it off with a hacksaw. So I'll just unlock the cross slide and wind that out of the way with this handle. So then I'll simply use a ruler to take a measurement of how much I need leaving on the material that I'm actually going to saw off. And then I'll just saw it off with a standard hacksaw and put a piece of wood over the lathe such that if the saw slipped, it doesn't damage the lathe ways. So that's a measurement of more than what I need, and I'll just saw that off now. It's not really best practice to saw something off in the lathe chuck, I don't think, because it puts stresses on the bearings etc. that perhaps needn't be there and perhaps shouldn't be there. But many people do it. But I'm not sure this is the right way. I don't think it is. You can hear the tone of the sawing changing as you're getting down the material and through the hollow hole. So as you get there, you lessen your stroke. Take a hold of your material that might now be hot, and with my hand through there, the saw isn't going to suddenly drop onto the lathe bed. And there it is, another rough sawn piece. So that's what we're after, just a thimble like that. And what I would have normally done is put this back into the chuck like that and just face it down to length. But because I haven't got the correct jaws for this chuck, I'm not going to do that because I haven't got the safe space to work in. With bar stock like this, the lathe jaws, the jaws of the chuck would normally be the longest jaw would be up against this material here, and these jaws that we can see here, instead of falling forwards every time, would always fall back and away from any tool piece that you've got in your machine. So this is a very dangerous way to do it at the moment. But I just thought I'd show you one of the first components starting being made on this lathe. And what we'll do in the next little clip is we'll try and use a vise on the milling machine side of things. We'll swing this milling machine across here and we'll try and mill these square in a vise mounted on top of this cross slide here. So if you're interested in seeing more chippings being made, then come back and join us again. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye for now.